Welcome to Psalter Music. Psalter, of course, is a new ministry here in the South Pacific, a ministry of Adventist Media Network, where we find and develop new original Adventist artists. And today we're joined by Emily and Jarrell from Vintage Season. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Well, as we've been asking everybody, where did you guys grow up? Jarrell, where did you grow up?
I was born in Melbourne, then we moved to Brisbane, and then we moved to New Zealand, Palmerston North, and then we moved back to Sydney, and now we live up Toronto, just near Cooranbong.
Okay. And Emily, what about you?
Well, I was born in Australia, in Sydney, and then my family moved over to a little island called Niue. That's where my grandparents and my mum's from, and I stayed there till probably when I was about 10. And then we moved back to Sydney, and then from there we moved to Newcastle, and now I'm back in Sydney while I'm working.
Okay, and where's Niue? Where's that island, Niue?
It's just in between Tonga and the Cook Islands. It's very little. It's kind of owned underneath New Zealand, but yeah, it's its own. Yeah.
Do you remember much of it growing up there?
I do, and a lot of the time when I see pictures, I remember a lot more. The language is a little bit different. I think I can understand it more than I can speak it. Okay. But just a few things, yeah.
Interesting. And what are you guys doing with yourselves generally? I know you play a lot of music together, but when you're not playing music, what do you do, Jarrell?
At the moment, I'm about halfway through a 3-year counselling degree that I'm doing in Sydney. So end of next year, I'll graduate and be a qualified counsellor.
Okay, and what do you hope to do with that?
My hope and my goal is to work in schools.
Okay.
Whether that'll happen or not, we'll have to see what God thinks and what plans God has for me, but that's my plan, is to work in schools.
Cool. And Emily, what are you doing?
At the moment I'm working as an accounts clerk at the Greater Sydney Conference Office, just looking after all the churches and making sure that they're all looked after.
Okay, well, you guys sound busy.
Yeah.
Does it leave much time for music?
When we can, if we get asked to do a few fundraisers or playing at church, I mean, we're more than happy to do it. But at the moment, we were focusing more on getting our first album out. So, yeah.
Where's your album at? I know this is your first album. How's it going?
Currently, we've finished tracking, finished mixing, and hopefully getting it mastered in the next couple of weeks and finalising artwork. So it's pretty exciting. Yeah,
and are you happy with it, Em?
Yeah, I mean, you'll always look back and hear things yourself that you wish you could do better, but I'm pretty happy with it.
It's an amazing album. We'll probably talk more about your musical influences later, and yeah, but it's an amazing album. Can't wait till it's out there.
Thank you.
You still writing together now? Do you write together every week, or?
It's not a regular thing. Sometimes it happens in spurts. Like maybe we'll write a couple of skeletons of songs in a couple of days, but then sometimes it just doesn't happen.
Gotta feel it.
The name Vintage Season, where did you get that from?
The name Vintage Season, we got it from one of our songs. The song is called Autumn, and it's talking about a new season in life, new season with God. And kind of starting over, and how fresh and how amazing that feels, and looking back to the way it was as being sort of a different season or a vintage season.
Great. Well, we'd love to hear that song now. Here's Vintage Season performing Autumn.
I was in a vintage season without a picket fence and a letterbox. Vintage season, I knew I wasn't home. In some ways I thought I knew where I was going, but reversing my steps, it doesn't make sense. Just when autumn came, I started again. I felt something change. I had nothing to say when it all went away. It was as they said. Staring at the possibilities of the strange in front of me. Never felt a peace like this before, a peace that I cannot understand. Like going back to my first memory, without a care in the world. It doesn't make sense that I could feel this way. Just when autumn came, I started again. I felt something change. I had nothing to say when it all went away. Was as they said.
I don't know where this is going, but I know who I'll be with. I don't know where this is going, but I know who I'll be with.
Welcome back to Psalter Music. We're talking with Em and Jarell from Vintage Season. Guys, can I ask you about your music and your musical influences? Jarell, there's a real jazz influence on the album.
I love jazz. I wish I could say that I'm a legitimate jazz player, but I'm just kind of influenced by it, and I try to learn a few chords and string them together. I do love a lot of jazz. That's what I listen to a lot these days, yeah.
And Em, what about your influences? What do you listen to?
I grew up listening to a lot of R&B and a lot of pop, so I mean anything within that genre. I listen to a lot and learn, but I'm open to learning a lot of things. Obviously Jarell and I have a very different taste in music genre, but I guess it's kind of brought together Vintage Season, so I learn a lot.
It works well together.
Yeah, we think so.
How did you guys get together musically?
In 2008, we were both part of a band called Endless Praise.
Yep.
She was singing and I was playing guitar, and we had a lot of fun touring around and playing music there. And then when we both out of the group, we continued on doing music together because we love doing it togeters.
Yeah.
I think she's pretty great. She's got such a good voice, so I thought I can't lose this. So.
And I'm pretty lucky to have a guitarist like Jarell, so.
Yeah, you guys are meant to play together, I think. It's a great album in terms of it's not overly it's not overly preachy. You're not going out to slam truth down people's throats, and yet there's a nice influence in there. I don't know, talk to me about some of the songs that are more spiritual. What are some of the songs we could listen to that gives us sort of a spiritual message for people?
I feel like the song Bucket is probably one of the most spiritual songs for me on the album, that came from a really real place. Well, they all came from a real place, but this one really meant a lot to me when we wrote it. And it sort of talks about trying to do things on my own, and thinking that I am capable of that, and then finding out that I'm not. And it's unfortunately it's in those moments at my lowest point that's when I realise I need God, and that's a shame, and I'm trying to learn from that. Yeah. But that's sort of been a repetitious experience over my lifetime.
Yeah, I think it's pretty common to everybody, isn't it? And Em, for you on the album, any songs that for you spiritually have a lot of meaning?
I really love our song Rusted Pushbike. It just talks about a story of a young girl who not necessarily grew up in a Christian atmosphere, but kind of learnt a lot about it and heard about it, and by the time she I guess had aged and was couldn't physically do a lot is when she realised that, you know, she wanted to give her life to God. And I guess in some way I relate to that a little bit. I mean, I've always been in church, and my family have always surrounded me with Christianity and God's love, but it wasn't until I got older where I understood Christianity within myself and what it meant to me in my heart. So I think that one really talks a lot about where I've kind of come from and my feelings toward it, and just the fact that God continued to wait for me no matter what I did. So that's really beautiful to me.
Jarell, I'll direct this question at you. You guys also do secular gigs, and through that you've made some pretty key relationships with some amazing musicians. Just briefly tell us about that.
Yes, we got to know through Mr. Percival, a good friend and amazing musician, a drummer called Hamish Stewart, who we came in contact with, and he's an amazing player, and he was willing to come on board on the project. And through him I found out about a great double bass player called Jonathan Schwartz, who after he knew that Hamish was playing, he agreed to come on board as well. And so we're really lucky to have some really some of Australia's best musicians on the album.
Yeah, and feedback, how's the feedback been from those calibre of players? What do they think of your music?
Hamish Stewart especially was really enjoying the music, it seemed to me. He was it seems like that's his personality. He's very affirming, very positive. So his response was exactly that. Yeah.
And it was good to reach out to, you know, secular musicians like that. And
yeah, absolutely. It's a great learning experience to seek wisdom from these people who have made it in the industry, and also to share where we come from, which is a different place. So.
Well, let's hear the next song from Vintage Season called Bucket.
Sometimes I feel like an empty bucket in the sand. Seems I'm no use for anyone no more. I've tried to carry some heavy things lately that push me, that bent me, wore me out completely. And that's when I know I need you. And that's when I know I need you. Sometimes I hear you come knocking just got something to do. I can't do this on my own, but I'm hurting, cracking, leaking out over the edge. And that's when I know I need you. And that's when I know I need you. But I forget all the promises that you love and guide me. I'm trying, 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 trying. And that's when I know I need you. And that's when I know I need you. Oh, and that's when I know I need you. Oh, that's when I know I need you. Sometimes I hear you.
Welcome back to Psalter Music, where we're talking with Em and Jarell from Vintage Season. Jarell, spiritually, what's kept you with God? It's not always easy growing up in church, but you still have a walk with Jesus. What's kept you alive?
I'm not sure. It's probably a number of things, and I mean, truthfully, I haven't walked with God my whole life.
Okay.
That's just the truth. I'd like to say that I have, but I haven't. My parents, especially my father,
Mm-hmm.
I look up to him and respect him more than anyone else in the world, and to see him have faith in God. No matter what I think about it, when I see him, a man who I really respect, believe it and trust it, that's always encouraged me to come back. And once I see what Jesus has done, what God's done for me, then that's also what's kept me there. It gives me meaning to life. Without God, there isn't a lot of meaning in life. So it's a combination of things.
Okay.
It's the amazing nature of God, and it's also the people around me that have led me back to Him.
And Em, what about you?
I guess I come from a very family-orientated background, and like Jarrell, my mum actually has shown me a lot. I guess our family hasn't had the best, life, and we've struggled, I guess, financially, and a few problems that we've had throughout our life. But my mum, I think, is a very strong woman, and the fact that she's gone through a few things herself, and she's still with God, and she's very strong in what she says, and it comes from her heart, and what she says and her feelings and love about God and Jesus is just very encouraging to me, and it encourages me
Yep.
that whatever I may go through, as I have growing up, I've gone through a few things, that no matter what I've done, God still loves me in that, and I can reach to my lowest, but God will always be there, and I think she's taught me that lesson. And just the fact that I may not have anyone physically around me, I know that He will never leave me spiritually, and I think that's just really encouraged me, and I've kept going with it, so yeah.
And in terms of your album, do you hope to influence people spiritually? You hope that it sort of betters people's lives? Or what's your goals there with your album?
I mean, that's the ultimate goal
Yeah.
for us. It's a bit presumptuous to think that everyone will get something out of this album. I'd love that, but I know that some people won't and some people will, and I really hope that people can see where we're coming from with this, with the album and with the lyrics and with our journey and with our struggles. And I really hope that it can encourage people. I really hope it can, yeah.
And in the end, if they don't, I guess, hear our stories within those songs, they can kind of create their own meaning as to what our songs mean. And if in a way that helps them, I mean, that's what we're doing this for, just to help people out. And I guess reach out in some way, so yeah.
Well, we'll hear your final song, Framing. Am I right in saying it's kind of a song about being, having a spirit of gratitude or happiness?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also trying to remember what we're grateful about. Some moments in my life where I'm just so happy, so grateful, so content. I can forget about them in minutes, and be on to something else that, and it's sort of, I wish I could frame this moment, keep it with me, pull it out, and feel the same gratitude and thankfulness and contentment that I feel right now.
That's great. Well, let's hear Vintage Season singing their final song, Framing.
Pinning up the curtains, painting with her favorite color. I can't ruin the surprise. Then she walks in with her hands over her eyes. She moves them away. The smile that's on her face. If I could frame this moment and stare as long as I could, fold it up, put it in my pocket so I could see what I can see now. How grateful I am, how happy I am to be here. Down the back at my house, there's a macadamia tree that was bought for me. As I open smile that's on his face. If I could frame this moment and stare as long as I could, fold it up, put it in my pocket so I could see what I can see now. How grateful I am, how happy I am to be here. Oh, yeah, yeah. If I could frame this moment and stare as long as I could, fold it up, put it in my pocket so I could see what I can see now. How grateful I am, how happy I am to be here.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed the amazing music today. For more information on any of the artists that you've heard on this show, please go to psaltermusic.com.